Today we talk about the fifth chapter in my book, Find and Be Yourself. I'm Marco Perri. Welcome to the Perri platform. We're now on the fifth installment of my book breakdown series, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. Time has gone by pretty fast and we're getting close to the end. So, this week's chapter is Find and Be Yourself, Pillar 5. I start off the writing with a simple question. Do you know who you really are? Now, when you think about that, at first you may feel like you do know, but if you can provide only a shallow description, you don't really. It's funny too, because when people ask you a question like, tell me about yourself, they're not asking for what I'm asking for. They want a quick preview, a summary of sorts, but I'm asking about if you can really break down your being into its individual components and do you know about them? To really grasp the depth of your personhood, you have to understand everything. All of your likes, your dislikes, your tendencies, your triggers, your emotions, and so forth. And that's no simple task. It takes a lot of work. In fact, it can be considered a lifelong mission. Now, when breaking this question down, who are you? There really are two parts to it. The pieces of yourself that are common among all humans, the things we share, and the parts that are unique to you. The parts that make you an individual. We spend every waking moment with ourselves, so figuring this puzzle out is quite rewarding. You can make better decisions, you can avoid common pitfalls that might be particularly strong for you, and even better, you can get a clear glimpse into the fabric that is shared among all people. You can better understand the things that all make us who we are. I want to begin our discussion by centering it around the things that are not unique to you or to me, the things that are shared. The first point here is that you did not author yourself. You're not the creator of your being. We can make our pre-existing conditions better, but we do not get to pick the starting point. In fact, we inherit all of our world. We are born with a certain set of genes and DNA. The world is what it is. We enter it in a certain state. Of course, we can alter it. As we grow, we can get better. We can make our environment more wholesome. We can do all of that. But we were not the author. We are the editors of this world. There could very well be deficiencies within yourself or your environment that you are not pleased with. And I just want you to know that you shouldn't be too hard on yourself for the things that you cannot control. If life were poker, chance would be the dealer. It's really luck that's playing that role there. What you do with your cards is really the important thing. Of course, the cards you are dealt can affect what goes on, but when it comes to fulfillment, it's how you play them. You can be angry at the dealer for not handing you a pair of aces, but that won't get you too far. It won't change anything. The round is going to continue whether you're on board or not. A more productive outlet is learning how to maximize the potential of what you have, because in poker, you can win with a bad hand. It's possible. Perhaps you need to bluff, or up the ante, or maybe fold and play for the next hand. There are ways to maneuver around the problem that can result in your victory, and in fact, life is even more forgiving. One key difference here between poker and existence is that in real life, you can actually transform. In poker, if you have a 7 in your hand, it won't magically turn to an 8 no matter what you do. But in reality, you have the power to manifest a change in yourself or in your environment with effort and time. You can make yourself better. You can become totally different than who you were at the beginning of your journey. If you would rank yourself as only having maybe a 2 out of 10 in anger management or a 3 out of 10 in intelligence when it comes to mathematics, you can get better. You can become a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 or maybe a 10 out of 10 if you work at it. All of these things are possible. Now, of course, if we were the authors of our own being, I'm sure that in the womb we would all select the best possible traits for ourselves. We would put maximum intelligence, maximum attractiveness, maximum whatever that we desire, but that's not how the world unfolds. So if you're lacking in one of these areas, it's not your fault. And maybe that's a freeing realization, because your current state isn't your doing, but it is your responsibility to move up, to get closer to your goal, closer to what you would consider a desirable point. And you can do it. You have that capacity. Now, the role of chance in life, which is a large one, sheds some light on the necessity for charity in the world. There are many people who are struggling, and often it's not their own doing. It's just sheer bad luck that's put them in that position. To be born into a country that's in the middle of a civil war, or to be born as a woman in a country that does not respect your rights. You're quite lucky to be born in a place like Canada or America. You did nothing to really earn that or deserve it. You were just lucky. And even beyond that, certain people are born with certain traits that make them better at skill sets that are desirable in the workforce. If you're good at engineering, if you have that mindset to break down things to their basic components, you will succeed. If you don't, well, it's not really your choosing to be put in a position that is disadvantageous. It just played out that way. Can you really fault people for these things here? The answer is no. And even if someone makes a decision to do something that's foolish, or they take a risk that doesn't work out, what if their skill set was swapped with someone who had a more applicable set? If their position in life was exchanged with somebody that enabled them to succeed? There is plenty of room for caring here. To see people who are struggling, your default mode shouldn't be to cast blame on them. It's highly likely that the realities of the world enable them to fall to that position. And of course, they can get better, they can improve, and there is responsibility on them to undertake that task. But at the same time, from your perspective, charity is called for to help individuals reach their potential, because these starting points are all different depending on a variety of factors, most of them genetic and where you're born, things like that. If you're born in a great country and you have a predisposition for learning, you're likely to do well. If you lack those things, and even other factors too, like having an intact family, studies show that that is tremendous in itself for producing children who are prone to doing well in things like school and whatnot. Having these stable factors around them that enable growth. Many children don't have that, and it's not their fault. It's not their doing. The ripple effects of that are tremendous, and as a society, it should be our goal to think about how we can mitigate for the effects of sheer bad luck. How can we create a tide that rises everyone up? Of course, there's going to be inequality no matter what, simply from the game of chance that life is, and the differences you're born with, and that's a good thing. To be unique, we don't want everyone to be the same. That wouldn't be fulfilling, it wouldn't be enjoyable. But at the same time, we have to find a way to mitigate. There is a saying that I like, it escapes me who said it, but they put forward that as a politician or someone with sway, you should set up your country in a way where you ignore your own personal position. You should create a fair game regardless of who you are. And you assume that you could be anyone. If you were poor, if you were unlucky, if you were successful, if you were smart. You want a system that rewards for all of that and captures the fallout. You do want to reward these successful people because they're the ones who are going to propel your society forward. But at the same time, you don't want to leave those at the bottom of the hierarchy in complete destitution because it's unjust and immoral. Finding that balance is a goal for every society. And one way to do it is by doing that thought exercise. If you were to disregard your own position, that is to say you do not vouch for something just because you think it will benefit you. You try to strive to this goal of fairness where you could be anyone. You put yourself in the position of someone who is misfortunate. If you were them, what would you like to see? If you were someone who was predisposed to success, what would you like to see there? And you find the balance. That's the game we have to start establishing. That last piece was a little bit of a digression, but now we can move on. The second piece of the shared human fabric is our distinct capacity for malevolence, and that might be shocking to hear, but it's true. Various influences and stimulus can lead you to unimaginable ends. Think about Nazi Germany, or any regime that was like that. There's plenty to choose from. It is easy for us to say, in our comfortable positions, that we would resist Hitler and the propaganda. We would not fall victim to that. We would stand up and be fighters for justice. The funny thing is, I guarantee you, if you took a Nazi soldier and you swapped them with you, you swap positions, you were born in their lifetime and they were born in yours, you guys completely changed identity. The soldier would say the same thing about you, that they would not go down the path that you did in their relative comfort. The same can be said about pawns from any oppressive regime. They are people who have responded to a dark environment. And the one thing you have in common with them is that you guys are people with these same tendencies built into you from thousands of years of evolution. We all have this potential within us. We are not a certain type of species that cannot fathom violence. We are not a species that can't comprehend morality. To believe otherwise is just foolish. To think that we would never stoop to these levels means you don't understand what being human is. To have that kind of mindset leaves you at the mercy of depravity. You're just unaware of reality. If you truly don't think that you would ever be brought to savage ends, think about what you would do to protect a loved one. What if someone set up a situation where you had to do something heinous to protect them? I guarantee you would do it. Or what would you do if you were led to believe your actions would get you into heaven? If the action was heinous, the reward still might make you consider it. Or if you believed that what you were doing was truly for the betterment of society, even if it wasn't, where would the buck stop in the pursuit of those goals there? A smart dictator will manipulate you, using your noble convictions against you, and they'll turn them into a twisted mess. It can happen to anyone. The only defense here is to understand that and put up a shield beforehand, to analyze what your morals are, to think about what you would actually do, and to plan out an alternate course of action if a situation arises where you are faced with the horrors of humanity. How would you respond? And if the answer is badly, maybe you can do some things to change that. But if you never entertain the idea, when it pops up, you will turn, and you will be crushed by the pressure there. Given all of that, it's also true that humans are two-sided. Although great evil can spawn forward even with the best intentions, we also have the potential for benevolence, the potential for good. You need to see both sides of the equation so you can shed light on the opposing forces at play here. It will motivate you to strive for truth and goodness because you will see how far you can fall, and you don't want that. You will do what you can to move away from that reality. At the same time, you can better prepare for the future. To be foolish enough once again to believe that nothing could shatter your resolve will leave you in the gutter when things go amiss. Instead, by understanding this balance here, you can pivot at the first signs of decay. You can plan for a future where you will be tested. You won't be taken by surprise because these factors have been accounted for. In a stable society, it's good that you feel comfortable. But when the social order gets rumpled up a little bit, things will change and they'll change fast, and that's when the true you will bubble out. So you better familiarize yourself with that before it's too late. So let's just summarize what we laid out so far. 3 things here were stated that humans have in common. The first is the overall lack of influence that we have in our own creation process. We inherit the world and we can edit it, but we're not the author. There's also the deep potential for evil that we all have, and also the equal potential for good. When trying to understand yourself, start here and dig into that. As your journey continues to unfold, you will learn more if you have these goals at the back of your mind. After you arrive at some conclusion here, you can move on to the things that make you unique, which is a little bit more complicated because there's so many areas there. And that's a good segue into that topic. Here, in the realm of what makes you unique, there is no limit. It's slightly more challenging than the shared traits to discover because of that. There's just so much potential there. All of your likes, your dislikes, your passions, your proclivities, your emotions, the list can expand into infinity. The interesting thing here, though, is that the facts exist. What you like, what you dislike, it's out there. It is simply a matter of arriving at them. For these items, the key is experience. That's the tool that will bring you to understanding. It is very unlikely that you will be able to theorize the multitude of factors that amount to your personhood accurately. You might think this, but in reality it's different. Because the world of the abstract is separate from what's going on in real life sometimes, and to really understand, you have to put yourself out there. This has to be a lived experience. You need to try things to see if you like or dislike them. You have to put yourself into unique circumstances to see how you would react to them. You need to talk to people to see what you click with. There is no way around this here. An online personality test or something will not suffice. It can only give you a hint. To really get the truth, you have to go out there and live. And of course, right now there's a pandemic, so maybe that's on hold. But when the opportunity arises, you have to live. Now, you might have some superficial understanding of what it means to be you in that unique sense, but to truly grasp the depths of your individuality, you have to dig. In some ways, it's a lifelong ambition. You will continually learn new things about yourself as time progresses. For example, your taste might shift. You might like one thing, but in the future, you don't anymore. Your moods might swing. So in a situation that's stressful, right now you might act a certain way, but in the future you can act a different way, especially if you train at reacting better. Maybe your values evolve, you become more accepting of certain things versus others. That's all fine. It's actually normal. And perhaps that's the central thrill of living, the continued ability to improve and develop and evolve to reach new heights with no restriction. You may believe that ice cream was your favorite dessert until you try something new that you never thought about that's 10 times more tasty. You can't confirm your hypothesis without sampling the other options. To make a firm conclusion based on a lack of evidence is not sound. Experience and self-awareness go hand in hand. And even in the ice cream example, you can see why I say it's more challenging and why it's a lifelong ambition. Because there's a plethora of desserts out there. To try them all, especially when some are in remote locations that you have to travel to get, well, that can be hard. So you create a best estimate. Out of all the things I've had so far, this is my favorite. But there's still things out there left to try. And that's going to be a lifelong journey to go out there and try things. If dessert means that much to you, that could be one of your goals. And of course, I understand that that's a silly example, ice cream flavors or desserts and whatnot, but the logic still stands for things of more substance. There is a plethora of experiences and you will require many years to try them all. So if it really means that much to you, it's going to be a journey. Now, there's also a common myth here that I should dispel. You do not need to be young to enjoy this process that I'm talking about, of self-discovery. You can find yourself at any time. It's never too late to start. Now, of course, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, but the second best time is now. Don't let these excuses stop you from digging into this mystery. One of life's greatest puzzles, who you are. Also, don't think that you have to do these grand things to find yourself. You don't have to travel the world and spend $200,000 to understand the basic fundamentals of your being. It's not a prerequisite. You can do perfectly well with small things. Talking to a stranger, ordering a new thing for dinner, signing up for a new course, learning something interesting. Those are all good, and they can produce results on par with anything. So if you're a little bit older and you see all this media narrative about when you're young, explore, find yourself, and after that, when you're old, it's game over. What you have is what you have. That's wrong. There's always room for self-discovery and for advancement and for potential. Don't lie to yourself. Go out there and see. You can prove it to yourself in a second. Once you do something new, your mindset will change dramatically. You can see if you like it or dislike it. That itself is enough for you to have a new perspective on the world. And you will continue to do that and evolve throughout your life with this mindset here. It's never too late. Now, someone may ask, well, what's the benefit to finding yourself? Why would I even do it? It sounds complicated. Well, the main thing here is that once you understand what you like, you can orient yourself to pursue whatever that is. To learn what you dislike enables you to avoid such conditions. To understand how your emotions work will grant you greater control over them. To discover your motivations, your passions, your vices, your virtues, and any other detail makes your life all the more understanding. It's very confusing, this world. Any glimpse of knowledge that you can gain should be gained. You can better position yourself towards the future. Going for what you like, avoiding what you don't, cutting out the mess, going for things that truly bring you meaning. That's worth it. You are granted the foresight to change what needs changing and to indulge in what makes you whole. That's amazing, and it's a perk that you should be willing to discover. The downside to not doing this is never finding yourself and being left in a state of profound confusion. Anything can be true to you because you don't know better. You become highly susceptible to media and societal pressures, and we see that so much today, especially with young people. I saw a stat recently that the suicide rates with young girls has skyrocketed, mostly because of social media. You're being constantly presented these images of models and celebrities who are doing a lot of things here. First of all, crazy standards of beauty, making you think that you have to have an amazing life all the time. You always gotta be doing something cool, and if you're not, you're a failure. And pushing forward all these advertisements to make you supposedly feel better. This new diet product, this new yoga pant, all these things here. It's a toxic environment. And of course, the same thing is true for men, young men. We already know that the suicide rates in them are even higher than that of the women, but this was a stat I found recently about young girls in particular. If you do not understand who you are, you will want to fill the void. If you see an advertisement telling you, do you want to be cool? Buy these pants. You will buy the pants because you want to be cool. But if you understand that what you want isn't exactly to be cool, or if you do want to be cool but you have a different way of getting there, you have a path for you. Your way forward isn't being dictated by social media or advertisers or anyone else. You already understand what has to be done. And you seeing a picture of Kim Kardashian with her Botox surgery or whatever isn't going to make you want it, because you know that's not you. You know it's not something that will bring you fulfillment. You know it's just you trying to conform to an ideal of society because you want to fit in. Because you have not grasped yet that individuality is really what brings you beauty and makes you interesting. Why would you want to be like someone else when you're granted this miracle of being non-duplicable? Nobody can be you. So own that. And you can't be them either. They occupy a unique spot. Occupy yours with courage and honor. Now, this same thing is also true even in the domain of love. We see it a lot with young people, where they don't even know what it means. They don't know what they're looking for, and therefore, their entire conception of what it means to be in love is based on what their partner tells them. So, therefore, that is their truth. They're basing everything on that expectation. And that usually tends to end up in the realm of abuse, where things are happening that they're not comfortable with, but they can't say anything because they don't want to lose this idea of love without even understanding that they don't have their own definition for that. They're relying on the interpretations of somebody else. You have to come to the table with your own idea. And the other person does too. And you compromise. That's a mature relationship. You work things out. You trade, you bargain, and you find a way to coexist. It can't just be one party pushing everything onto you. And that's what's going to happen if you don't find yourself, because you won't know what you need. You won't know what love means to you, and it's a terrible spot to be in. Now, once you get around to finding yourself and you get some semblance of what that can mean, the next step here is acting that out, to actually be yourself. And this can be hard sometimes, especially if we don't like what we found. The good news is that we can change and be better. As I said before, the starting point, that's not your choice, but where you end up, you can control that. If you see things that you have to improve upon to really be proud of yourself, then start doing that now. Make that change and be a better version of you. Of course, nobody is perfect, but there is one thing that we can taste perfection in, and that is being ourselves. It is a custom rule made only for you. Own that. You can be the perfect Joe, the perfect Jessica, the perfect whoever you are. Make that a priority. Now, at the same time, it's unfortunate because people will betray themselves for various reasons. Maybe to impress a date or to succeed in the workplace. I would rethink that though. I understand that one of the greatest fears of the human race is rejection. We see the inadequacies of the self and we think, hey, why not put on a more attractive mask to hide yourself from the world? To put on a facade? To appear more appealing, even if falsely? That, though, is not the goal here. Whatever false notions of images of desirability that the world has thrust upon you have to be ignored and avoided. Why should you have to make these sacrifices to be accepted? These standards are absurd, not you. Instead, pick up your flag and fight for it. There is no greater symbol of courage than to rebel against a norm that wishes to curb your individuality. Be yourself and be proud. Find out what that means to you. Nobody has the same set of traits as you. That itself makes you rare. It makes you unique and it grants you inherent value. To not be replicable is quite the feature. Allow people to reject you for the truth and allow yourself to taste success through it. That is the recipe for fulfillment. One of the benefits to being yourself is that it generates a sense of realism in everything you do. It sets you up for true success by building your relations on a real foundation instead of a facade. Imagine being in a romantic relationship where you trick your partner into thinking that they're with someone completely different than they are in reality. You may be experiencing a period of bliss for a little bit, but the cracks will show eventually. Then, when the truth is revealed, it will cripple you. Your partner will feel as though they never really knew you, that they were lied to and deceived. A betrayal of that degree is hard to recover from. Save yourself from the misery and be true from the beginning. If it fails or if a problem arises, well, at least you know why. Because the truth was your guideline. You know if it's fixable or not. And if things work out, you did that honorably. And you are tasting success through yourself. You can take pride in that. The one constant throughout life is the ever-present potential for improvement. We can always aim higher and climb the ladder, regardless of our speed or where we began. We can make strides towards a self that we are deeply happy with. We will never achieve that by living in a state of doubt or confusion about who we are, though. The truth is imperative here. There is nothing more beautiful than a person who embraces themselves fully. Try to make that you. Now, I'll close off just by summarizing what we talked about today. So there are 2 parts here. Finding and then being yourself. So beginning with finding yourself. There's 2 parts within that. There are the things that are shared among all humans, the common building blocks, and also the things that make you unique. For the common things here, we have 3 items. The first is your lack of being an author. Don't feel too hard on yourself, or don't be too hard on yourself for things beyond your control. But you have the responsibility to improve on what you want to improve in, because you can do that. We all start on different spots and whatnot based on a variety of factors, but we can all move forward. That is a shared human potential. And at the same time, humans have the potential for good and for bad. Don't be so quick to judge past figures for these wrongs they committed, because if you were in their shoes, would things be different? And the tendency is to say, yeah, they would be, but when you think about it, it takes quite the person to resist all that pressure, and it's very likely that you probably are not one of them. You better train yourself to prepare for a situation where you are truly tested, where your convictions are used against you, where you are committing massive wrongs because you think that you have to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, or the ends justify the means. Think about how far you could fall. So when you are faced with that reality, you can stop yourself by clinging to the ridges of your morality and your philosophy on life, really. What you think is truly correct. You better flesh that out. Now, there are also things that make you unique, and here there's a little bit more complexity with figuring it out. If I had to boil it down to one thing, it would be experience. You have to go out there and try things to figure out what you like, what you dislike, your emotional capacity, all of these things here. If you never test them, you'll never really get to the bottom of what they are or how they play a role in your life. But by figuring these things out, you can make better decisions, you can orient yourself towards things you like, and you can avoid things that you don't like. And ultimately, it's really a lifelong journey here to continue learning about yourself, because you're going to change and there's a lot of things out there in the world to experience. So don't give up and get started. If you're old, it doesn't matter. Now is the best time to get going. Well, really the best time was yesterday, but now is the next best time, so get moving. And don't waste any more time in a state of confusion. You have to figure out who you are, and you have to honor that. And we see so many disasters today that stem from not realizing this. The suicide rates, the way that advertisers and media are playing you, trying to get you to buy into the images they are selling you. We don't need that. Forget it. And once you find out who you are, show the world. Taste defeat through it, and taste victory through it as well. Let the world judge you for who you are and face the consequences of that. It's far more noble than putting on a mask and lying to yourself, putting on a facade. You might get better outcomes from that, but it will feel hollow because it's not you. You are a unique individual, and you have to own that. If you refuse, well, the cracks might show one day, and all that awaits you there is disaster. Building a structure on a poor foundation is never a good idea. So, that summarizes today's pillar. Next week, we're going to be talking about finding a purpose, which is very important. That discussion will try and lay out why purpose really is the motivation that keeps you going, and why you need to have one if you're going to bear the brunt of the horrors of life. We talked about in the previous pillars that there are so many sources of suffering, and your purpose is one thing that can help propel you forward and to keep you going. So, that now brings me to the end of our conversation for today. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a review and share. They'll help us grow. And a gentle reminder that the book I'm talking about here is free. It's available on all digital platforms, Amazon, Apple, whatnot. You can get it. And if you can't get it from them for some reason, contact me and I'll make sure you have a copy. I can be found at perriplatform.org or on social media at Perri Platform. I also have a new Facebook page at Perri Platform as well. I'm finally on there. So now I have the trifecta: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Reach out anytime. So, without further ado, I'll see you next week.